Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to Solid Ground with me, Simon O'Connor. If you are a first-time viewer of the show, welcome. It is a live show coming to you from a treehouse studio in Auckland, of all places. But welcome, as I say, it's a live show. It's where we talk the political, the social, the cultural, the ethical of the day. What's been in the news? What are the stories? From a good foundation, a solid ground, if you will. So welcome to the show, and of course to all our regulars. The show, just like Daybreak when Bob does it on his Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays, continues to grow, and so we are very excited to not only continue the programs, but to have you all with us. As the regulars will know, being a live show, you can comment and ask questions. You can do that, you can comment on any of the social media platforms where you're viewing this. But if you want your comments to come live to me into the studio, you need to be on Family First's Facebook page or its YouTube channel. And that means that actually your comments come right to me here, just like Lynette has done. She wins the prize today of being the first. We've got Foo Dogs trucking us off. Good morning. Not just a good morning, a jolly good morning to Mike. Lovely to have you along. A good morning from Dean. I see what you've done there. Good morning. Hello, Rosie from it. It's a wet Auckland as well. It's been pouring down all night. I'm actually looking forward to spring because I think everything in my garden is going to grow rather well. Jackie, good morning to you. Lovely to have you along. Darren, good to have you here. As he says, it is actually a little bit warmer. He even had the windows open last night. Nigel, good morning. It sounds like Te Awamutu quite grey as well. Muddy waters there in the deep south. Good morning. Dean is known. Oh, I see. This is a... I'm going through my good mornings. Yes, I'll come back to that very briefly. Actually, haven't forgotten. Is noting that here. Robin's asking, has the Fauci news been... So long and short, not really in New Zealand. I think there's been some cursory coverage of it, but not much, because it doesn't suit the narrative. That's why you need the likes of Family First or Jump Onto the Platform or RCR to actually get to get some news. Strong in him. Oh, I have to press the button. Good morning. Foo Dogs Trucking says it's a tad wet. It certainly is. Samuel, good morning. Theodosian Walls, lovely to have you along. Theodosian said who to vote for. I have to say, quite honestly, it's going to take me a good few weeks, if not months. I'm probably not going to make my decision on who I'm voting for till the very end, because I think there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge. Good morning, Susan. Good morning. Got Trish. Lovely to have you along. Mer912. And Fyson River, I think. Sorry. Apologies if I ever get people's names wrong. One of these days I need to take a photo for you guys. I'm on a little laptop with all of the screens I need. And so, anyway, lovely to have you all along. Look, I am going to touch on, obviously, what's happened with Luxon, the National Party, Chris Pink. It's probably breaking news for some of you, but it seems that his intention is not to seek re-election now in his electorate. So you'll know that he was sacked yesterday by Christopher Luxon, accused of being part of the coup attempt. And as of this morning, if I've read RNZ correctly, and if I can trust Radio New Zealand, he's not seeking re-election for his electorate. So I'll talk a bit more on that, but I do find it sad on a number of levels, including that another Conservative exits the National Party, which is a bit disappointing. And good morning to New Zealand Knitter. I cannot not say good morning, and there's an awkward sentence for everyone there. Before I get into the politics, everyone knows I love a good Chinese spy story. So I think Dean is responding to an article in the paper this morning. I've only read the headline, Dean, but I think it was a conversation probably before by Paula Penfold, who's a reporter and journalist, actually who I know because she and I work in this space around foreign interference, and talking to Andrew Hampton, I assume, of the SIS. Look, long and short, if people want to know my view, and actually it's serendipitous, there's the word for the morning, I actually wrote an on-point last week, I haven't had a chance this week, on foreign affairs in New Zealand, and this is actually a copy of a speech I gave to a group of New Zealand Chinese who actually are wanting to embrace New Zealand's culture and get rid of the CCP's interference in New Zealand. In fact, they'd like to see the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, go. So look, long and short, foreign interference is very real in New Zealand. It comes through a number of vectors, a number of countries. So China is one of the biggies, but Russia, Iran, North Korea and others also run interference campaigns here. But if you read my Substack to Dean and others, you will see me highlight some of the things which are happening. As I say, foreign interference is very real. Doesn't mean we should hide under our beds, but it is real, and I can say that from first-hand experience. For some who know me, you'll know that I was particularly targeted by the CCP, had my parliamentary emails targeted and hacked along actually with Lewis Wall and Anne-Marie Brady. So, bit of a problem. They interfere in New Zealand's parliamentary system and our council system, and certainly they keep a very clear eye, these are the CCP operatives, on our Chinese community who are very democratically oriented. So, yeah, anyway, read the Substack, or not. As I say, I go more on to that. Look, the news. This is all the news. It's going to be all the news for the week. I thought I'd just give some, when I say highlights, I don't think this has been a particularly good situation for National. Not a good situation for these three, nor for the likes of Chris Penk and others. But I thought I'd just give a cursory, maybe that's a better word, overview of what's been happening around the second coup attempt in almost as many months. I think the last time was April, so there goes my mathematics for you. But the second coup attempt, and look, Bob and I will be discussing this in depth tonight on Political Playback, so that's 5 o'clock live. Again, you can see it on the platforms you're watching at the moment. We will go in a lot more deep. Bob and I have two different opinions around this, not giving it fully away, but Bob is very much the opinion this was media driven. I'm not as convinced. I think while the media amplified things, there was trouble at mill. There was trouble within the National Party. So anyway, and just quickly as I'm doing that, good morning, Tasman. Lovely to have you along. So look, what can I say? What do I want to share to you this morning? A big mess for National, I'm sorry to say, and a frustrating one. While I'm not a National Party member anymore, in fact, I'm not the member of any political party anymore, I'm enjoying my new life here with Family First and doing my online shows for them, or my show with RCR and other things. I still want, and it won't surprise any of you, I still want to see the centre-right return to government. But days, weeks like this for National are exceptionally damaging. And no amount of spin will help, because in my view, and again, it's only my opinion, and let me know what you think. I mean, you might be saying here at the moment, no, Simon, look, it's been dealt with, cauterised, strong and efficient, everything's fine. I think for a lot of New Zealanders, all they pick up is the headlines. I often talk about it's just the news washing over them. For people like myself, Bob, I'm sure for many of you, we read the news diligently. We go beyond the headlines. We're trying to work out what's happening. We're sort of interested. Would have been following the live trackers yesterday. And I was in contact with people waiting for the news. So we follow it deeply, but for a lot of Kiwis, all they're picking up is Luxon's being challenged again, National's in a mess. And that's damaging. My suspicion, guys, this probably won't affect the overall centre-right vote. In other words, National voters who are now even more frustrated with the National Party, with the MPs, they are not going to go running to TOP or Labour or the Greens. The National voters are going to move to New Zealand First. They're going to move to ACT, which means that the overall centre-right vote holds. But it'll be interesting to see what, if any, damage. Look, it is very clear to me, guys, there are very ambitious people in the National Party, and there's two of them there flanking Luxon. They're not going to be the only ones. I've written about this on a Substack months ago, around probably the April coup attempt. I called it rinse and repeat. Why I'm directing you there, because it would take me all morning to try and explain it. But long and short, the National Party's had this problem for a long time. In fact, it happens in most political parties. There's great ambition. And look, they have been stirring. I don't believe this is just purely a media plot. As I say, I think it's media's been amplifying the issues. But there is trouble. There are ambitious MPs within National who do want to replace Luxon. But for the second time in a row, they've not got their ducks in a row. And so it's failed. So there's that. So I'm just seeing all the comments coming through. And I thought I better engage some of them. I won't say who from Family First this is, because it could be one of two people. But yes, am I now the Prime Minister? No, I think that would require quite the coup. But very good question from my colleagues there at Family First. Fourth Adam says actually they think this has been generated by the media and laying the groundwork for... Look, I actually think that's an interesting perspective. So there's sort of three ways through this, isn't there? There's either this is a full-on National Party-driven, MP-driven event, which the media then picked up on Amplify, which is probably more where I sit. Someone like Bob, if I'm not misquoting him, and again, you'll hear from him live tonight on Political Playback, he's very much, this was media generated almost through and through, and then, for want of a better term, spooks the media. The MP, sorry. And fourth Adam, I think a nuance there too, which I think is actually worth considering, is that this has all been generated by the media, which lays the groundwork, which I think actually is a really interesting perspective. We'll have to think and talk about that. Harrison says, and we'll get on to Pink, it's a stink that he had to leave. And Theodosian Walls is saying, I heard Topper becoming the kingmakers. I'll touch on that too, because I've got some polling I'll share with, just again briefly, because I don't want to take away from Political Playback tonight. And others are saying, look, there's floating voters. I think there certainly are. There's a lot of undecided people. I suspect there are disillusioned both Labour and National voters. They go, these parties don't sort of sit with me anymore. But they don't quite feel, on the right that they want to vote ACT for whatever reason. And on the left, they go, do I really want to vote Greens? So I think that's where a lot of Top's vote comes from. But as I say, look, very messy, very untidy. There's a whole series of little contradictions. And again, I'll get into them more tonight. But I think it's plain for all to see. Actually, I might use this photo because nothing says unity and disunity or problems of basically a whole pile of senior MPs sort of ashen-faced standing behind you. If you watched yesterday, I'm sure Bob will have the video. I think it was about 90 seconds that Chris Luxon spoke for. He ended it actually really well to say, look, I'm getting back to work. I'm not interested in talking further. I thought that was actually a very strong way to finish. For me personally, I found a whole series of grim-faced MPs standing behind him doesn't actually signal the unity that he wants. I suppose there's a whole lot of mutually contradictory things being said at the moment. And I shouldn't smile because I think this, and I'm not smiling because I think it's funny. I'm smiling because it's sort of just, it's, as I said earlier, it's this rinse and repeat. They just keep shooting themselves in the foot rather than focusing on values and good policy. But, Luxon says, I have the full support of caucus, but we had a vote on my leadership. Mutually exclusive. That's a major problem. To say everyone is happy and yet you can see the faces of people standing behind. You can say, look, again, full support of caucus, there's no problems. And then you go and sack a minister like Chris Pink. Again, as I keep saying, probably too much. These are contradictory statements, which is not helpful at all, I think, because, again, people pick up on it. So, look, there is trouble. There is, as I say, ambitions. I think they're trying to handle this as best they can. I think Luxon has done the right thing. In some ways, he did the right thing fronting this so quickly. I know there'll be some people who said him tweeting 2 nights ago, calling the meeting was the wrong decision. I think from what I can share, the insights that at least I can have, was the right call. He's moved fast, which when there's a coup going on is quite prudent, because the more time you give coup plotters to make phone calls and machinate, the worse things it becomes. And I think actually Fourth Adam sums up far more articulately than me. Group photos of any politicians tends to look grim and serious. Yes, and also they sort of become, if I might, like the nodding Jesus on the front of a car. It doesn't work for me, and I think, again, it looked, to me, just my personal opinion, it looked weak. I don't think anyone believes that this was a happy group of people, and also we know that some in the background are interested in leadership. There is a destabilising effect. Look, and Raywin says Nicola Willis doesn't look too happy. No, and she won't, because, of course, Jumping back, for Nicola, her political survival is tied to Luxon. She is effectively the first list MP off the rank, and at this stage, even in the poor polling, has a chance. So yeah. Pink, very quickly, I'm sad to see him go. Another Conservative bites the dust. So he's been sacked, accused of being very much involved with the coup plot. Whether it's right or not, that's for him to know, and obviously other MPs. But I would just say this to you, and again, I'll elaborate further tonight. He's become the patsy for this. He's the one that Luxon can sack. There are other more troublemakers in that caucus. I would suggest to you it's quite obvious who they are. Their names keep being mentioned in the media, but Luxon is not in a position to sack them. So he can make an example of someone like Chris Penk, which I find sad. I can understand from a political necessity point of view, to be honest, if you're in Luxon's shoes. But speaking personally, and Chris is a friend, as in Penk. God, there's so many Chris's, aren't there? So many Chris's. It's very sad to see. He's not standing, as I say, for re-election in his seat. Again, I find that sad. Another Conservative leaves the National Party and under a cloud. And look, I will say this because in some ways fits for me as well. Very few people leave politics happily or in the way they want. You either have a scandal, you have something that Pink's going through. Obviously, I lost my election. Others will just drop off the list. As I say, very few people leave politics in the way they want. Harrison is saying they should bring back Bill English. Yes, I'm sure a lot of the National are looking back and going, those were better times. But as I say, very sad. Look, conscious of time, this is again something Bob and I will talk last night. This was the TV1 Verizon, or Varian, sorry, Varian poll. Verizon is the telecommunications provider in the US. So I'm going to take a cup of coffee because I'm losing my voice. Brilliant. By the way, we'll have these cups for sale. Oops, wrong way. We'll have these cups for sale at the Family on the Forum, which I should actually make a shout out in a moment. But very interesting. These are the polls. They did not publish them as they normally do on a Monday. They, from all intents and purposes, TV1 chose to hold this polling before the Luxon spill attempt, the Luxon coup attempt. So you'll see Nationals holding at 29. Look, not a great number, but holding. Labour, in fact, coming down. Greens going down. These are actually supportive numbers, you could argue, for Luxon and the National Party team. But it appears, again, it's an accusation, can't fully prove it, but normally TV1 releases this poll on a Monday night. They don't wait till a Wednesday. So it would seem to me, and Bob and I will discuss this tonight, that they've held this poll because it could have been helpful to Chris Luxon. Some would see these colleagues are asking me in the day. No one wants the Daybreak mugs. Only kidding. There will be Daybreak mugs. I think there's even counterculture mugs now, guys. So look, there's lots of mugs, and then the ultimate mug will be there as well. But look, again, more on political playback. But isn't that fascinating numbers, including the 8% supposedly for top? I don't believe it. And look, yes, Luxon's prime ministerialship is down as at 1%. Chris's is down. But again, not a total bad news story. Luxon is still ahead as the preferred prime minister. But again, TV1 has chosen not to report it. Anyway, I keep talking about the forum on the fan. I'm going to give you a quick preview of two of our speakers. It also gives my throat a little break. Then I'll come back with some last political thoughts and then another news story from overseas.
I'm Dr. Gillian Spencer. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist from Brisbane. And I'm looking forward to coming to Forum on the Family in September in Auckland to speak about my experiences as a whistleblower, trying to raise concerns about gender interventions for children.
I'm Dr. Andrew Amos. I'm an adult psychiatrist, and I'm looking forward to coming to Auckland for the Forum on the Family, where I'll be describing my run-ins with my professional organisation for trying to stand up for truth and integrity in caring for kids with gender dysphoria.
So just two of our amazing speakers. Obviously go to forumonthefamily.nz to register. There is less than a month to go now. There are still some seats. We have a big venue, but they are selling fast. It's going to be amazing. As I think Bob says in the video. This is the premier event of the year for, social conservatives, those who believe in family. So sign up. It's going to be amazing. If you're a student, we have a special rate for you. So join in that. Hey, look, a few last thoughts.
Friend of mine, but she's not a Prime Minister.
Was Chris Pink calling around doing the numbers for Erica?
He never rang me.
Did you just say that Erica Sanford is not a Prime Minister?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't believe she's a Prime Minister. She's a very good friend of mine, but I don't believe she's a Prime Minister.
Do you think that the Prime Minister is the best person to lead the National Party?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Just wanted to share that. So that's Nicola Grigg, the Minister for Women. She's actually a good friend of Chris Luxon's, came in the same year. Look, I'll be honest, she's in her positions because of that friendship and clearly backing him. But why I wanted to share that video very quickly, this is just illustrative why leadership coups, spills, speculation are so damaging. Her comments there, which by the way she's free to make, she's said, look, I'm a friend of Erica Stanford, obviously one of the people who has been suggested for leadership, and I would suggest wants the leadership at some stage, along with the likes of Chris Bishop. But Nicola goes on to say she's not PM material. This is why spills are so damaging. Comments like that are not forgotten. They're going to be deeply hurtful between the likes of Nicola and Erica, or maybe it'll all bounce off, who knows, that's up to them. But I don't want to get too captured on the particulars or Nicola in this case. It's more just an example of how things which are said, either in public, which was quite a bold thing to do there, or certainly in caucus, leaves a lot of damage and hurt politically. So I suppose it's a very typical me, a long way of saying political spills, rather than the Labour Party, we've seen lots of those now in National. These dynamics are not just a flash in the pan, they're not just a 24-hour news cycle, they become very, very damaging. Lots of hurt, lots of mistrust. So just wanted to add that in. And the last 2 points are really just around the media before I switch topics, because typical me, I've prattled on too long. No offence to Thomas Cogden, he's actually been interesting in his reporting. No one knows what went on. So this is his piece in the paper. In the end, he's probably picking up on threads of information that he has to write the story, which is fine. That's the role of a journalist. I mean, I can sit here, Bob and I will speculate as well, but be under no illusion, no reporter, no journalist in any media here in New Zealand knows exactly what went on. They have little tidbits, little glimpses of light through the closed door, if you will. So look, read these things with interest. Look at what else other media people are saying and see where there's crossover. But just to signal, no reporter, no matter what they say, knows exactly what's going on or goes on inside those caucus rooms. And like I can tell you, as someone who's been inside them, I can give you general impressions, as I have. I was on RNZ yesterday morning on Morning Report, but we'll never give you the exact details, because that's just how it works. So anyway, it is damn lies and statistics. So look, read with interest is what I'm saying, but know that no reporter actually knows what's going on. And then speaking of reporting, this is the Post, or Stuff, particularly with Matthew Hooton. This is, and bless Bob for sending this through, this montage. This is just some of the headlines in the last few days, and I'm just sharing this because actually what we have seen from the likes of the Post and some journalists is a campaign against Luxon. Regardless of the ructions within National, there has been a very active campaign. It's reminiscent of what I remember when they were pushing for Todd Muller to replace Simon Bridges. Actually, Matthew Hooton was a big part of that at the time. Constant attacking and undermining headlines. And here's just 4 examples in recent days. Unrelenting media attack. Very unfortunate. I don't think this is appropriate in any way. But as I keep saying, Bob and I will chat more about this tonight. Join us from 5 o'clock. Last thing, I'm sorry to end on something quite sad, actually. Complete switch of gears. This is Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, actually where I lived for a year. The governor there has just signed into law, and this is her signing a law of an abortion bill, abortion up to birth for any reason. I think just absolutely god-awful. You'll know that in recent weeks I've been sharing pictures, including of a little New Zealand baby, 25 weeks old, just a beautiful little baby. The quadruplets born in Australia, again, 24 weeks. Clearly not clumps of cells, little babies that have gone on to live. But this governor and the clapping seals behind her, wearing their little medical jackets, and I haven't got the video, I chose not to share it. They're all clapping, as I say, like seals, celebrating that they will be allowed to kill babies, little babies, up to birth for any reason. It's just deeply sickening, and I think, sadly, guys, it's indicative, well, not only of New Zealand, because Jacinda Ardern and her lot passed the same horrendous, I'm using someone's word from the chat, horrendous law, abortion up to birth for any reason. It is quite sickening, as I say, when you watch the video, these women around her, like clapping seals, and really just part of a death cult, which is absolutely tragic. And I will say, not just for the babies, but for them, they'll be held to account for this, and that's more of, I suppose, a spiritual point. But it is, as NZ Nitter says, it's incredibly sad. And I know in this debate, and I have abortion debates all the time, there is more nuance. You know, I'm fairly clear on my principles on this, but even as I debate, same with euthanasia, you can debate at the margins around certain elements, but the idea, like these women and the governor, and obviously there'll be men supporting it too, but they've actively chosen to put all these women around them, some with their little medical jackets on, whether they're doctors or not, it's probably all perfunctory, celebrating the extremes, as I say, up to birth, and for any reason. Just shocking. But notice too, by the way, and not to draw parallels, but there does seem to be something in politics about this surround yourself with people. I don't know about you, I have always found this to look profoundly weak and stupid. That's just me. I've just never liked, and I used to hate it when I was in politics. You know, come and stand around the leader. Never liked it. Never liked it at all. So guys, I'm going to wrap up there. I might even be done by 8 o'clock, which is what meant to be. New Family Matters dropped yesterday. I talked with Vainant Jacobs. He's the head of Family Life New Zealand. We're talking about Marriage Week. It's actually the week after the Forum on the Family. So that's in September. We talk about Marriage Week, and we actually just share some ideas around how we strengthen marriages. Vainant is much smarter than me. I've only been married for 9 years, but I think that's it's a great conversation if you want something more uplifting. Obviously, a reminder, Bob and I do these shows every morning, so there's that. Speak Free, I'm actually recording some more today. I've got interviews after this with some actually very exciting guests, but my last one was with Annie O'Brien. That was really good. We're talking politics, we're talking free speech. A big reminder, of course, we've got the likes of Counterculture. Don't forget, this is one of many shows, including, of course, Political Playback tonight, and that's where I will actually leave it with you guys, because this is, well, there's lots to talk about tonight. Obviously, the attempted coup on Luxon, the resignation of Chris Pink, the polls. What are the polls telling us, and why were polls withheld until the spill was over? What's happening with TOP? Are they actually and really at 8%? And what role is the media playing in all of this? So guys, I'm going to leave you to the day. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever this will find you. As I say, I'm going to be remaining in my little treehouse for most of the day, recording interviews. I will, though, see you all at 5 o'clock at Political Playback if you can make it. Otherwise, I will see you next Tuesday morning.